Hi there, I'm indoors by my bookshelf today. I thought that'd be a nice way to start the video. So if you don't know me, I'm mainly known for making nature journals, and I make nature journals that look a bit like this. And I also teach nature journaling techniques, so if you're interested in that, you can find out all about nature journaling on my website. I'm starting a whole new project now, and this is the first vlog that's in this project that's going to be documenting what I'm doing for the next year and a bit. So with that, let's get into the project. Let me tell you what it's all about and how I'm going to start. Now, some of you might know this book, and this is a really beautiful nature journal or sketchbook, which covers the same area that I'm covering. So it's the Undercliffs, going from Seaton to Lyme Regis. And this artist, she does a lot more kind of very realistic watercolours, so a lot more detailed than I do. But I mean, as you can see, it is absolutely stunning work. And this was done in the 1980s. So I'm going to be going to the Undercliffs at least once a month, preferably twice or maybe even 3 times a month, and gathering information to build out a nature journal like this. Now, the main point of difference is that I'm also going to be mapping the Undercliffs, and I'm going to be doing it in a quite unusual way. I've been interested in maps for quite a long time, and here we have a ribbon map or a strip map. And I've decided that I'm going to map the entirety of the Undercliffs with nature journal observations using this style of map. You see you've got this ribbon going across the middle. This was produced in the 1600s by John Ogilvy, who was the cartographer for King Charles II. And it follows the line of a road with compass points and little observations of the towns and the hills and the forests along the course of that road. Now, I thought I'll do the same, but I'll do it as a nature journal. So instead of being particularly interested in towns and road features, I'm going to be interested in what nature you can see along this line throughout the year. And every journal I've done, with the exception of one so far, has been more interested in time. So you start in one month and you go all the way through until you get to the end, when you finish your book. This one's going to be more interested in space. So we follow this line, which I'll map out first, and keep coming back to put in observations as I see them as I go through this reserve. So it will be more about the spatial aspect than it will be about the temporal aspect, which I think will be very interesting to do. This is a Midori cotton journal. This is a Japanese brand, and I really love this brand. It's called MD Cotton. And I think the one that I've got, let's take a look. Here we are, this is it all wrapped up. So yeah, Midori, Japanese brand, lots of Japanese on the actual journal itself. We've got, it's called a MD Notebook, and this is an F3 variant. It's kind of about A4 size, so if this is a A4 bit of paper here, it's like a little bit smaller than A4, but about as wide. And it opens up, as you saw before, it opens up completely flat. So it's a really nice book to use for nature journaling. So let's get inside it. Bought this book about a year ago, preempting this project, knowing that I was going to get started. And they're really beautifully wrapped. They come with this kind of paper cover over the top. You take that off and it's got like a kind of, I guess it's like tracing paper cover that helps you keep it looking nice. I'll take those off. I'm really happy to be starting a new one. So this one's got like a little panel in the front that you've got the volume number, a start and a finish date, which is really nice. And it's got like a little box here. You can then put some details in as well. The pages of this, they're quite thin, but they do hold ink and coloured pencil very, very well. So you can see in this one, although I've got lots of writing on here and lots of coloured pencil, and the pages are quite thin, but because they're made of cotton, the quality of the paper is really high. So you can sort of see a little bit of, when you look through, you can see the writing on the other side of the page, but it doesn't actually bleed through, so it doesn't affect your drawing on this side. Now I have a photograph that I took of an oyster catcher. So when I walk from my hometown of Seaton down underneath the cliffs themselves, all the way along the beach to Lyme Regis, these birds are very, very common down there. Now I want him to overlap some of the writing because I think that's going to look really nice. So what I'm doing is I'm just going to sketch out the shape. So I'm quite happy now with my little oyster catcher. You can see it's a very rough little sketch. You know, it's not perfect, but I've got the opportunity now with my line maker to improve that. It's really subtle, this one. It's kind of a halfway house between a pencil and a really strong fine liner. It's still possible to kind of make a few adjustments with this by going over it with a darker colour. I like to take away the pencil lines because they can interfere with the coloured pencil quite a bit if you leave the graphite on there. These are Derwent Pro Colour, and they are the same make of coloured pencil that I did in the other book that I just showed you. I'm going back to my old materials, and you know, actually these last forever. They're quite expensive, but to be honest, they do last a long time. They're really good quality and they're kind of super worth investing in. Now what tends to happen is as I go along, I start plucking up colours. This is my strange little habit actually. Start with one or two colours, gather, until my left hand here can't hold any more pencils. It's funny, and then I have to kind of put them all down and then start the whole thing again. So then let's think. I've just got a bit of pink on the front here. I'm going to leave the background behind the bird entirely blank, including the ground, because I'm going to use a different photo from the beach to put in behind here, so I'm not actually going to use this.
I could sit around and wait all day. You lay easy on my mind.
I've done a few more hours of work now on the title page, and I'm just going to show you filling in this last little section. This is a photograph that I took of the beach underneath the Undercliffs. You can see all of the shipwreck materials that have been left. I don't actually know much about this shipwreck or what happened to wash all of these bits and pieces up here, but I thought it's a good thing to put behind the oyster catcher here. So I'm just showing you this a little bit about how I fill in with the colouring pencil, the process that I use, gradually layering up, always putting in the lighter colours first and then layering up over the top. Just adding in the title and making sure that the colours underneath have been well blended before adding in the red. So I'm going to blend this top bit here before adding in the rest of the red. Building up all the layers to get three-dimensionality and depth on all of the shipwreck metal parts. This is the final page. I've split it into 3 sections by the 3 routes that I'm going to be covering in the project. And I've put an image that's representative of each of the locations. Speaking of being in the Undercliffs, I've been out for my first visit as a part of the project. Let's take a look.
It's April and I'm out today for the very first walk through the Undercliffs as a part of this project. And I'm just doing a little bit of nature journaling here, writing down what plants are flowering just now. This will be useful to add to my observations for this section of the path later on. I've walked the Undercliffs quite a lot over the years. I've been living here for 7 years, so I've been in here quite a bit. But I tell you what's making an enormous difference now is having my big camera
seeing the birds really close up, and also the Merlin app. The Merlin app has just been incredible. I'm just going to show you how it works now. I'm listening to the bird sounds. The app is listening to them too and telling me particularly exactly what I'm hearing right now. And it's just been incredible. So instead of just being sort of a load of sounds that I think is really amazing, but I don't really know what's what, it's really helping me to identify the different birds that are around me. And that's really helpful for this project as well, so I can kind of contribute a little bit to citizen science at the same time as actually learning the bird sounds and knowing what I'm writing about and getting that into my journals. So I think really the combination of having the app and the camera and a lot more at my disposal now than I used to have when I was nature journaling, it's really bringing the world kind of closer to me. And I hope that you're enjoying it, seeing it kind of being brought closer to you too. Well, I'm in the Undercliffs right now. I'm filming for you for this project vlog and gathering observations for the journal, but I've also been doing a bit of filming today for my online course. So if you don't know about the online course, it's up on Patreon right now, and it's also soon going to be available for sale through my website. It teaches you a little bit about how to get started with nature journaling from a beginner's kind of point of view, beginning prompts, a little bit about drawing, writing and identifying. And hopefully all of these things together will get you started with a little bit of your own nature journaling. So if you're interested in that, you can find it on my Patreon, and the link to that is in the description below. I've just stopped here at Charton Bay, this bench overlooking Charton Bay, for my lunch. This is my favourite lunch spot in the whole Undercliffs. I've got a fistful of wild garlic to add to my lunch today. Woodpecker, can you hear the woodpecker? I've stopped again here to do a little bit of filming and look for some interesting wildlife. It's really warm in the sun. It feels a lot later in the year than it actually is. This is what I'm looking at right now. It's got the light on it, so it's nice and easy to film birds here. By the way, if you ever fancy a studio tour video, I can do one of those for you. Just let me know in the comments if you're interested in that sort of thing, and I'll take you around the entire studio and show you what sort of materials I use and what I've got in here and how I use the studio space. This is where I keep my coloured pencils. I've started a new page here. You can see I've put the title along the top of the project. This page is going to be like an index for the entire project. It's going to show all of the routes that I'm taking as a part of the project. That's over the top of the cliffs, through the Undercliffs Reserve itself, and the path along the beach down the bottom. I'm using a more traditional mapping method here and trying to map everything on the flat, so looking down, rather than using the ribbon method, which I'll be doing later in the project. And among all of the routes that I'm putting in here, I'm just going to put in lots of little pictures and things to make the map look really nice, and just show the major features that are interesting as a part of the project. So rather than having towns and cities, I'm going to just put down interesting nature observations. This is the Ordnance Survey map of that same little section. Now I'm very lucky in this case because really well, so I could actually fit the entirety on a 1-to-1 scale, like exactly the same scale. I could fit the entirety of the reserve on the page, which was really helpful. So sort of from here to here, all I had to do to get everything really nicely to scale was just draw on this grid, just as it is in the OS map. So it's a kilometre scale to a block, and just copied it basically directly across. But the nice thing is that I get to actually choose what details I want to put in. So rather than the OS map, which shows you everything, including the roads and the buildings and all the things I'm not really interested in as a nature journaler, I use the OS map as a basis, but then what I'm putting in on here
is just the trail where I'm going and a few of the interesting locations along the way. Well, I'm thinking what I'm going to do, and this might be useful to some of you when you're trying to plan a project like this, is take another book out that's especially for this project and nothing else. So I've got a little book here, and it's kind of a square book, which should be quite useful actually. It's quite small, as you can see. It's a small square book. And I'm going to take this outside with me into the reserve. And what I thought I might do is, you see these trails here that I'm kind of following in this project. I will also draw the trails out in this book, and I might start a little bit of that later on. So then, coming back to the same style as this, and whenever I want to go out and actually put some observations down in the book, you can kind of do that. You can, alongside the trail that you've already mapped out, using these kind of mapping exercises, you can just write a few little nature observations and the date from day to day. That's kind of the idea in there. And all of that information that's from the outside part then feeds into what happens in this book. So I think that the combination of having an outdoor version and an indoor version of the exact same thing should be quite helpful to keep this progressing along. So I have a plan, for this end of the reserve, I have a plan as to where each of these is going to go. And what's going to happen next is all of these routes here will also be converted into strip maps like this. So that's the next index page, is going to have each of these routes, one page for each of these colours, drawn out in this way. And then as you go on into the book, they'll be crossing all the pages, and then all of the nature observations will be surrounding them. And it should look really beautiful when the project is finished. I've added a little view of the beach down at Lyme Regis, and on this page I'm just going to add lots of little things that are interesting. Where the ammonites are, where you can find the bluebells. So that will make this map just look a little bit better. Right, that's where I'm going to leave it today. I've done about this much, and I've still got the rest of this page to finish off. If you want to see more from this project and you haven't subscribed to the channel already, then make sure you do that, and check out the links in the description below if you're interested in any of the materials that I've featured in this video. And you can always sign up to my newsletter to find out more about my online courses and my Patreon and so on. I'll see you in the next video, guys. Thanks so much for watching.